Hi guys, Squall here. Welcome to my first look video of Transport Fever 2. Transport Fever 2, the hotly anticipated update to Transport Fever 1, which you may or may not have played. So, if you've not played it, I'll explain what the game is in a second. But just to say, this video is going to be split into a couple of parts. The first part, I'm going to kind of quickly show you around Transport Fever 2, talk about some of the updates and changes between it and Transport Fever 1, show you some gameplay and some graphics, that kind of thing. And then in part 2 of the video, we'll start off playing the campaign. I'm going to do a playthrough of the campaign, so if you want to watch that campaign, you'll see it through a series of videos. We'll talk more about that in a second, because I'm sure you're just itching to see gameplay. Now, Transport Fever 1 is essentially a logistical management game. I think somebody in my stream asked me, is it like City Skylines? And the answer is no, it's not. Whereas City Skylines is a game where you basically design and build up cities, Transport Fever is more of a logistical management game. So you look at the supply and demand across the network, and then this map can be of a different size. You can choose that when you're customizing your game. And you basically set about creating transport networks to move goods from A to B to C and so on, to supply towns with needs. So when you click on a city like Fort William, it will tell you, not on this one, but it will tell you what it needs. For example, here, we're supplying it with steel and whiskey and fish, which are the things that it needs. And the more you supply it with what it needs, the more the town will grow. There are also other considerations, for example, emissions, like the amount of noise pollution that you're making, which can have a detrimental effect. There's traffic, which you need to deal with, both private traffic and traffic that you're dealing with, your own buses, your own trains, that kind of thing. But we'll talk more about that later. In front of me, I have just one of the missions out of the campaign, which I just thought I would show you the game and how it works. And now what I've got here is I've got a train line that's running from Fort William, and I've managed to build it all the way down to Glasgow, you can see. But along the way, different things are happening. We've got passenger runs, we've got cargo runs, all sharing the same lines. If you play Transport Fever 1, you'll be very familiar with the signalling system that's used in Transport Fever. Essentially, that's a two-way signal and that's a one-way signal. I greatly prefer one-way signals because in reality that's how train systems tend to operate, but your mileage may vary. Now, one of the big changes between Transport Fever 2 and 1 is this. The way that you can build and configure stations. This was a real bugbear in Transport Fever 1, but now they've got this new modular system. So if you click on, say, a train terminal, and this applies to, actually, we'll show you a truck one first because it's a lot easier. Here's a truck terminal. So trucks are coming in and out and gathering coal from the coal mine. Now, if I want to add on to this, I can click configure, and I get a series of dots all the way around it, and I can add different things. For example, if this truck stop, I also wanted to have a passenger platform, I can click that, and you can see and add that in here, and then buses can stop here, so they all share the same station. What I don't have to do is destroy this and build another one or build two. All of that's gone in Transport Fever 2. It's literally modular, so you just add on what you need in terms of street access and road access and that kind of thing. A few vehicles, but not lots. Yay. If we was to configure this one, this is where it can get more complicated. I've already extended this a few times. What I can do is I can add multiple tracks, so I can add another track line going through here. I can then add either a passenger or a cargo platform, so I can bolt that onto the track. I can add passenger buildings. Passenger buildings give road access to the train station, so if I wanted to bring passengers into the station, I could perhaps extend this road here and then build a nice large passenger building like that, and they could easily access the train station. You'll notice, if you look closely, when you add one of these things, you can see underneath these kind of crisscross patterns of roads. That's kind of like the internal connection system. So what's interesting is that when you add something here, you'll notice at the back there, that highlights. What that's showing you is that this station, if you like, captures the supply and production of that industrial building. And that will be the same for if you have buildings all around this. When you move in, it will show you it capturing it. It also means that this truck stop here and this train station here, and all of its platforms, and that industry are all accessible from the same thing. If I bring trucks in here, I can take the steel out of there. If I bring ore in here, it will absorb it and use it. It's pretty cool, and it's much easier than Transport Fever 1. Now, as expected, you've got really 4 kinds of transport. I've only unlocked 3 on this particular map here. But you've basically got the road system, which includes buses and trucks and that kind of thing. You've got the train system, which includes, obviously, trains. You've got the boat system, which includes, if I can find one, we've got a ferry run of whiskey going on somewhere. There they are. So this ship here is bringing 100 barrels of whiskey into Lower Glasgow from the distillery. That will then dock. It will unload of its contents. This truck station here will then, which is accessed by the same thing, it's all sharing the same logistical network. These vehicles will come, there you go, so that's the ship unloading all the whiskey, and then what these do is these take it over to the pub, which is just over here. There's the pub, Glasgow pub. They drop the whiskey off, and the pub will sell it to the people in the vicinity, and that's your basic supply and demand network. And then the final thing is aircraft, so you can have passenger and cargo aircraft, and all the stations are modular. Passenger stations, for example, this one here, Lower Glasgow, which is a shipping station. If I click on configure, you can see at the moment it's only designed to take cargo, but if I wanted to, I could add a passenger terminal block onto that, and you can see the connecting roads there, the yellow and blue ones connecting into the road. I can then add more, let's say I want more landings, say I want more docks. I can just bolt them on like this and scale this thing up. So as long as I've got the room, I can scale this up as I've got more vehicles coming in and out of the joint. More loading bays means, of course, you can unload and load in parallel, and you've not got vehicles queuing up for each other. It's kind of cool. Now, top left, there's a bunch of layers that help you to do things. First one is the contour layer, which shows you console lines. These are lines of equal height. And of course, when you're building networks, particularly train networks, you're very sensitive to steep climbs and descents. So what you want to be doing is choosing the flattest kind of course through valleys and that kind of thing. And the console lines really help you to do that when you're constructing things. Next one is the Navigable Waters. It's obviously when you're building shipping routes and you want to know, if I build something here, will ships be able to access it? And effectively, it's only the green stuff. You need to build your docks that access a green area for that to work properly. Then you've got land use. Now, land use shows you the three different kinds of building, if you like, that you can have. You've got the residential, the commercial, and the industrial, and they all have different kinds of needs. The residential will obviously produce people and passengers, so you can see I've got a bus route running around here. You can actually more clearly see it if I click on that for a second. You can see the bus routing that I've got going on. So I'm moving passengers around, not just the town, but I'm also taking them over to the train station so they can get on a train and go elsewhere. You've then got the blue one, which is the commercial district. The commercial district will tend to buy end goods. For example, things like steel. They will take steel here. Actually, I think it's the other way around. I think the industry takes steel and the commercial takes the whiskey. I think that's right. You can actually tell by looking at, get rid of that for a second, this one, I think it is. It's actually not showing it. There's one of them that's the one. This one here, I haven't got to that yet. Cargo. Cargo is incredibly useful. Whiskey and fish are consumed by the commerce, and industry is consuming the steel. So that's a really handy one, the cargo overlay. You can see what kind of goods need to be brought into where. Now that's critical when, for example, I'm bringing in steel on this train, and the steel is going to be dropped off at this platform here, which these industrial units can access, but these industrial units over here cannot. Now, for example, if my station had to come into here, and I have to get steel over there, then I need to look at this overlay, because the steel is going to come into the train station. I then need to have trucks move it over to where it's needed and drop it off near industry. So an example of that is where I've got fish. I've got fish coming in on a train all the way from Fort William, and you can see the fish here have been dropped off and they're sitting in this truck terminal. And because that's not in the catchment area of all this blue commercial that needs the fish, I have to basically move it. I take a truck and I drop it off here at this truck stop. So that's another one of the overlays. Then you've got things like track speed limit, which is useful when you're building trains, particularly through gradients. It doesn't apply for us at the moment in this year, 1882 down the bottom right. This is quite early, so the trains are not very quick. But when you start to get later through the decades and your trains get very, very quick, they will be limited by the track speed. So that can become quite significant, particularly when moving passengers around, because they want to move around quickly. You've then got destinations, which is showing you how people are moving around your network. So private transport in blue is saying, you know, they're getting in a car or a taxi or some other way. They're moving around these roads themselves. Now, this can be an indication that you need to step in, and there's actually an opportunity here, because if you see lots of private traffic going through these roads, not only is that going to clog things up, but it's also a signal to you that maybe you should think about putting some buses down there. But you can see my public transport here. I'm bringing in lots of passengers on the train, and then those being moved around on the buses. So things are okay on that one. The cargo one we've just seen. Then you've got the stations. That can show you overcrowding. So if this starts to go like red in color, you might have a big queue of people here. It means you've got a lot of demand and you're not supplying enough transport. So that's an information kind of thing. Street traffic, same thing. It's going to show you if there's any congestion in the area and where you might need to think about buses. Now, you can, like Skylines, you can demolish roads and redo them, or even upgrade them. And I'll show you that in a second. But there is always a cost, because if you have to flatten somebody's house or somebody's industry, there's going to be a price tag on that. So you've got to plan ahead and think carefully. The emissions one I've showed you, all the noise is currently over here. And then finally, you've got this HUD icon filter, which allows you to turn off things that you don't want to see. So that shows you the layers icon, if you like. Line management. Lines, if I show you how to create a line, that's probably easier. Let's say, for example, that we want to create a new bus route around here. So what you can do is you can come down here to the road network, click on buildings, and then you've got the bus and tram stop. So you would start off by deciding where you want to put your bus station. So let's say we have one here, one here, one here, and one here, like that. So we're going to create, I mean, you wouldn't do this, but you know, this is an example. You then go to the line manager, say I want a new line. You click on the stations to add. Now these can be any kind of line at this point. It can be a bus line, it could be an aircraft line, doesn't matter. You click on the stations to add. So you start off with, say, that one, and then you go to that one, and then that one, and then that one. Now notice, and I think this is different to Transport V1, it actually shows you the number of the platform of the station that it's stopping at. So when you're looking at the list of stops, it actually numbers them, and that becomes important if you want to have for example, a reversing route where you go 1, 2, 3, and then you go back to Grange Road and then back to Green Lane. So you go along like that, turn around and come back again. You can actually see the order that it's going to do it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's incredibly useful. Down the right here, you've got different modes that you want to, when you get to the stop, what do you want to do? Do you want to just take any load, if there's any passengers there? Do you want to wait until there's a full load? So this is more for commercial stuff. So your truck will take any of the goods that are available. Just wait until you've got full of something. Or do you want to take full load? Everything has to be full before you even leave. Down there, you've got the ability. This is more fine-grained control, but you can tell it, when I get here, I want to drop off all of my goods and I don't want to pick up fish. Yeah, so if there's any fish happens to be available, it won't pick it up. So that gives you a bit more fine-grained control over what you're doing. But that's how lines work. Then what you do is you create a vehicle by going to the depot like this. You create a vehicle, you say buy vehicles, and it will show you all your passenger vehicles, all your cargo. There's not much available at the moment because of the year, but you know, you will have lots of kinds of vehicles, and they'll all have pros and cons. Most notably around the carrying capacity, the top speed, if you like, the tractive effort, the pulling power. But let's say, for example, you want to buy one of these, you click on buy like that, and then you assign to one of the lines that you've created, and off it goes. But it also has some really handy tools available. So if I say, take that vehicle, what's that one? It's a passenger vehicle, so let's put it on a bus route. Let's say Glasgow buses there like that. And if I go to Glasgow buses, I can see all the vehicles that are currently assigned to that line. What I can do is I can click on a vehicle and click on clone, and it will create another one of those in the depot and assign it to the same line, and it will just drive out the door. And you can see down here I've got 7. If I click clone, I've now got 8, and another one will now drive out. That's really cool. So they've added some really nice management stuff here. You can color code them, send them back to the depot, sell them, that kind of thing. Really handy. Over at the train station, where's the train? Where did I put the train depot? There's the train depot. So if I click on buy, you can see a better example of different kinds of vehicles. So here we go. This one does 40 kilometers per hour. Tractive effort of 20 kilonewtons. That's how much pulling power it's got. So if I go through these, you can see that this one is very, very good at pulling. So this would be great at pulling heavy loads, and it has a top speed of 50 k's, which is actually the best one that I've got. But sometimes you will see locomotives that are very good at pulling but don't have a fantastic top speed, and that's a clue to you that this is really a goods vehicle locomotive, whereas some other one might be, you know, not so great at pulling but actually has a really good top speed. And what you'll do with that is you'll make it into a passenger train, and you'll put fewer passenger cars on than you would on a goods train. You get the point. So later on we go into multiple units. We've got all different kinds of wagons. We've got steam, electric, diesel. You know, later on this game gets absolutely crazy, and let's not forget that it has a pretty good mod scene as well. Like, there are, for Transport Fever 1, I think there are thousands of mods available. People tend to create mods of actual real-world vehicles and other vehicles, like interesting and fun stuff, and the same with buildings. So replayability-wise, this game is pretty fantastic. What else can I show you? I can show you supply and demand. So, for example, here, you click on a Steelworks. It will tell you what the rule is for this thing. Either it will just produce goods, for example, like this one. This is a source point. The only rule is I produce fish. I produce fish. I'm currently at this level. In order to level this thing up so it produces more, I will need to start shipping the goods away. And you can see how well I'm doing here. Once we get into this bracket, this is now getting ready to upgrade. So once we keep these bars high, in other words, all the stuff that it's producing, we're moving away and transporting, it will then upgrade, and it'll suddenly like double its production. And you'll then have to start bringing in more vehicles to move all the goods. It tells you where the stuff is going. You can see we're moving it to Glasgow, all the way across the other side of the map. 79% is going down to Glasgow, which is rather cool, and you can see the charts here for how much was produced and how much is being shipped. So you can see I'm pretty much bang on now, moving everything that it produces. Contrast that with this one. This one here is the Glasgow, sorry, not that one. This one here is the Steelworks. The Steelworks needs a couple of things. You need to bring in 2 lots of iron ore, 2 lots of coal, and that will produce 1 lot of steel. So you've kind of got to make sure that it's always supplied, and you can see what's going on here. Stored, I have 270 iron ore, but I have 0 coal. Yeah, I just don't have enough coal coming in. My coal, funnily enough, the coal mine is here, and it's coming in by truck, but the trucks are quite slow. So I'll probably need to have more trucks, but again, there's going to be a limit because, well, there's only one loading point here. So if I was to watch this and see, is it the loading that's the problem? Do I need more loading bays? And the answer is probably. I need more loading bays, but what I really could do with is a vehicle that can just carry more stuff, because each one of these vehicles can only carry 5 units of coal. But unfortunately, because of the year I'm in, there is no better vehicle than this one. So I need to wait until a new vehicle comes along, or I need to basically upgrade this thing and just add more vehicles and bring more coal into here. It's not worth running a train line, so, you know, the reason the iron ore's doing so well is because I've got 2 massive trains just going down the road here and bringing in iron ore from there. So I've got, you know, too much iron ore, not enough coal. And that's an example of kind of the logistical process that you have to go through when you're thinking about things. Now, in terms of industry, there's plastic, oil. You need to refine oil, turn it into plastics. There's steel that you can bring into factories, produce goods. Towns will demand goods. All of this is kind of drip fed to you through the campaign if you play the campaign, or you can just play it open world. Just choose the size of the map, choose whether it's tropical. In fact, I'll show you that in a minute. What else have we got? Down here, we've got the industry statistics, so you can see the different kinds of industry that we've got going on, what they're producing and what their requirements are. This is useful for finding stuff on the map, but this is a fixed scenario. Let me jump over to Sandbox Mode, and then I'll show you the kinds of industry that you get. Okay, so back at the main screen, you can create a sandbox game. So you can choose the climate you want: temperate, dry, like that, and then tropical. And it will generate a map, and you can also choose the size that you want it to be. So you could, for example, have a large map, which takes a lot longer to generate. And you even get like a seed value here, so you can pass a seed value on to a friend so they can generate the same map. You can specify, you know, you want it super hilly, you want islands on it. You can specify how much industry there is. You know, the variables are there. You click on next, then you just decide, do I want to play European vehicles, American vehicles, Asian vehicles? Let's say Asian. What year do I want to start in? Do I want to start in, say, 1980 on a medium difficulty? Let's go. There we go. It's generated the map, and as you can see, it's pretty big. And that was only, I think, was that the medium or the large we chose? But yeah, it's massive. Bear in mind that you can zoom all the way down in this game to like street level. And the game is exquisitely detailed, you can see. I mean, it even behaves like, you know, Euro Truck AI. Well, but all the buildings that you see are localized based on the year that we've got. I mean, this is the 80s. So as you go through the generations, you'll see different generations of vehicles. And that really is the beauty of the game, is just playing it through different decades and seeing what it looks like. But also just playing it in different climates. As you can see, it will bring different materials as well. So going back to that industry statistics list, if we bring that up now and we'll sort by product, you can see that on here, on this map alone, there's a whole bunch of forests that produce logs. So the logs can be taken into a sawmill and turned into other goods. So if we wanted to find out where to take it, we could start scrolling through the list, looking at requirements. There you go. So this sawmill here will produce planks. So do the planks need to go anywhere? Yes, they do. We can either take them to a factory to be made into tools, or we could take them into a bigger kind of factory that demands steel. That produces machines. Now that's a more advanced construction because we're going to have to solve a few problems with that. We've not only got logs to the sawmill to produce planks and bring the planks in, but we've got to, as you saw earlier, take iron ore and coal to a factory to produce steel, and then bring the steel in. That produces the goods, well, the machines, and the machines then have to be moved into the town. But not all towns will take machines. Like if we was to look into here, and what's that one? Goods, that one there. If we have a look at what it demands two kinds of goods. It's demanding, well, literally goods and fuel. And fuel is produced from oil refinery. So we need to find an oil refinery. We need to find crude oil, take it to refinery, and then turn that into fuel and bring it in. And if we start to supply this town with goods and fuel, it will start to grow. And also the passengers will then need to be moved. So they'll want to go to different cities. And you can see that thing is nowhere near another city. So that would be a very interesting challenge, because there's lots of island hopping to do. Now, in terms of, you know, how difficult it is geared around a finance system. So, you know, you don't have endless money unless you make it super easy. But that's the challenge of the game, if you like, is supplying all industry and towns with what they need. Basically turning goods into something that towns will buy. Towns are ultimately the end user of the goods. And, you know, the more we kept them supplied, the more they will grow, the more they'll produce more passengers, and the more we'll end up with a problem in terms of congestion and emissions and all the rest of it. And that's what basically makes it a fun game. If we was, for example, quickly show you if we drop down not a tram depot, so a road depot, like that. Then we can click on buy, and we can see the kind of vehicles that we've got in 1980. So as you go through the decades, it phases out older models. So, you know, we're not going to see the horse and cart in 1980. We're only going to see relevant stuff. And as we go into the 90s, we'll get more modern buses and that kind of thing. But you can see in 1980, we've got nice tall pulling trucks that can carry any type of cargo. We've got a tank truck that can carry crude oil, or fuel. So it can move liquids around, that kind of stuff. If we have a look at a train, let's put a train depot in. Click on buy, and we can have a look. Look, we've still got steam. Even in 1980, we can still buy a steam train. And this one here, the Russian class P36, goes 125 kilometers per hour, which is pretty amazing, all things considered. But we can also go electric and go all the way up to 160. But that would require us to upgrade our track. Our track would have to be electrified for that to actually be able to operate. And then you got your diesels, which, you know, they only do like 100 Ks, but look at the tractive effort on that. 400 kilonewtons. It's like insane amount of pulling power. Boats you've already seen. Let's have a quick look at the buildings. That's passenger airfield, passenger airports. I haven't played around with this stuff yet, so I can't actually tell you what it's like. I haven't been playing with planes in the current build because the embargo's just been lifted, and I'm still trying to work out what's what in the game. But you can see buy vehicle, passenger plane. We've got a Junkers JU8, JU52, and a short Sherpa. Ooh, nice. And the same thing for cargo as well. And just like, as I've already showed you, they're all modular, so we've configured them. We could add main buildings, passenger terminals, cargo terminals. So if we want to, you know, upgrade this thing to handle more cargo, we can just add on more hangars like that, which is really, really cool. So everything is modular now, which makes it much easier. Because in the past, if you had real problems between passenger and cargo transportation, you couldn't like mix and match them like you can now. So this is a really cool addition. But that, you know, that's an overview of the game, if you like. The terrain modifiers are still here. You can, of course, you know, make things elevate the ground, which costs you money. You can even like spray it if you don't like the look of it. You can make it so you can go to town and just change the way things look if you want to. Bob Ross achievement, lol. But yeah, the rest of it I'm going to show you by just playing the game through. If you've never seen Transport Fever 1, then you really might be very confused right now. If you have played Transport Fever 1, then you may be interested to see a bit more. So what we'll do now is we'll switch through to the campaign mode, and I will explain as I go along what I'm doing. But the campaign's designed to also teach you, so it will be a useful exercise. So you can not just see the gameplay, but see how it works, see how I solve problems, which should make for a pretty interesting playthrough. So now we'll jump over and we'll kick off with the campaign. Right, so back on the main menu, I've already showed you the free game. That's where you configure the game as you want it. There's also the campaign mode. There's a map editor, which you can use to create your own maps, and then you can share them all in the workshop. And if you do go to the workshop when the game releases, you will find that there's an absolute ton of stuff there. Now, one thing I neglected to mention was the game purchase and the best way to buy it. Two ways, really. If you own Transport Fever 1, then you can get it on Steam with a 25% discount built in. If you already own Transport Fever 1, you can buy 2 with a 25% discount. If that's not available to you, the best option that I have is the Games Planet affiliation that I have. Look in the video description for a link, and if you use the code, you can get 17% off, which is not far off the full 25%. That's the best offer I've seen via my Games Planet affiliate code, and obviously I'll get a very small amount of money for that, but you will save 17% on your Steam key, and it all comes from a legitimate source. It's not one of these dodgy websites. Games Planet only sell legit keys, so that's a good way of buying it. Right, so we click on campaign, and you'll see
mankind is constantly creating amazing new inventions. Get involved in rapid technological progress and ensure smoothly running transportation in different regions of the world.
You will see that what we're going to do is there's 3 campaigns to do. There's 6 missions in the first campaign. I've done 3 of them already, but I'm going to start again so that you can see it. I'm going to click on the first one, which is here.
America, in the midst of the 19th century. In the Nevada territory, where until recently only a handful of buffalo grazed, nowadays it's all hustle and bustle. Beyond the Sierra and near the Carson River, gold has been found. There's supposed to be loads of it. All you need to do is dig it up. Anyone who keeps at it hard enough will be richly rewarded. What a splendid opportunity.
Now, it's worth mentioning that some people don't care for the campaigns. They would rather just play it in sandbox mode, and that's fine. And there's lots of people who say, oh, I love it when they've got a story mode. Well, this is your story mode, and it also kind of acts as a tutorial, so it's worth playing through, particularly if you've not played the game before. As you can see, this particular chapter is going to take us through 6 different places. The first one starts off in America. The second one will take us down, I think, to the island of Java. The third one's going to take us up into Scotland, and that was the one that I showed you a bit of at the start of this. And then after that, it looks like we're going to America, what looks like possibly Turkey, and then over to Russia. So I'll click on Start. These are a mixture of training and fun and challenge, so they're a pretty cool way to get into the game.
Welcome to uncharted territory, newcomer. Want to get rich? Then you're in just the right place. Gold rush fever holds sway in Virginia City. And you lucky devil, you've won the mining rights for a promising claim in a poker game at the Red Dog Saloon. Soon you'll be hauling out gold nuggets as big as a cat's head. Thanks to cleverness and luck at cards, you have a gold mine all your own. The former owner, a gal at the saloon by the name of Susie, who plays a lousy hand of poker, already took care of the groundwork. And a practical woman, she left the necessary equipment behind too. Now all you have to do is to find the mine. Get an overview and find out where the riches lie.
Right, so I'm going to assume that you've not played the game before, so I'm going to explain everything as I go along. If you have already played the game before, then I'll try to be brief, but I just want to make sure that people don't miss out on things. You may have saw also when it panned over, the shadows were a little bit kind of glitchy and hard. I am on max graphics settings, so that is just the way the game is. There's nothing I can do about that. So the moment just wants us to move the camera around and pan and tilt. So WASD is going to move it around. Mouse wheel is going to zoom in and out, and if you hold the mouse button down, you can spin the camera like that, and you can also tilt it up and down.
Discover the entrance to the tunnel.
You can also, if you want to, just use the mouse edge like this. But if you click on this thing, it'll activate the rest of the mission.
What a promising claim. Even though only a few boulders have been mined so far, that's no reason to lose heart. You'll just have to dig deeper. You ought to get hold of some solid timber from the nearby forest so that the fine shaft doesn't cave in. The beams will be excellent for stabilizing the tunnel. Decide where the carts should be packed with logs.
Right, so build a station where the horse carts will be packed with logs. Build a truck stop in the highlighted area. If you click on this, it will take you to the highlighted area. Basically, there's a forest here. It's going to produce logs, and this is a timber supply, so it needs logs, and the logs will then supply the mine with what it needs to stop the caves, the mines from falling in. So we need to click on the road icon down here, and this is split into streets and buildings. So we want a building. In the buildings, we've got bus tram stop, bus tram station, truck station, road depot, and tram depot. The depots are where you create vehicles, where you send them back to reconfigure them. Other than that, things are generally speaking split into passengers and cargo. So we want a truck station because we want cargo. When we sort of initially move it in, you can press the M or the N key to rotate it around. And if you hold the shift key, it turns it very small amounts. What you want to do is make sure it's connected to the road like that. Now, if you're a little bit OCD, you won't be doing this or this kind of thing. You'll be wanting to hold the shift key. Just nicely square it off like that.
Explain to the sort of thick-skulled driver which route he should take.
Now we need to establish a line which runs from the new stop to the existing stop near the mine. So one thing worth pointing out is when you're creating lines, it can make it a bit easier to name things. Virginia, we don't need to name this so much, but we do need to name the line. Now, if you click on the line manager and then click on new line, you get a brand new line, which is both color coded and named. If you click on the color, you can choose, let's say, brown for the wood. And then if we click on the pencil tool, we could name it. Now, I tend to put things in brackets for the kind of line that it is. So if I say brackets R, it means it's a road network. If it was a T, it means it's a train network. Now, R can also mean rail, and T could mean truck. So it's up to you on how you decide to label things, but I'm personally just going to go for R for road, and then I'll say forest logs. That'll do. You can call it whatever you like. Your name, you can put the city name first, you can put the cargo first, what it's designed to do, how you name it is entirely up to you. As long as it makes sense to you, that's all that really matters, because you're the one playing the game. Now you click on add and add station, and you can hover over this truck station here, click on it, and it will add it, Virginia City Sidings. And then we're going to click on this one here.
Now, there's got to be a small depot to park the horse-drawn carts too.
Now, as I mentioned briefly, the terminals don't apply yet because we only have one terminal. But I will show you that later on. Unlike Transport Fever 1, if you have a station with, say, 2 stops, 2 platforms, you would have to waypoint the trains in. With this, you can just drop the list down and choose the terminal that you want it to stop at, which is so incredibly useful compared to Transport Fever 1. Also, as I said earlier, you can basically tell it to wait for goods or just carry on when it's got anything. We'll leave it for now. So it wants us to build a depot so that we can actually create vehicles. So we want the road depot, and we're going to drop that in there. Just make sure it's lined up like that.
Everything's all set. Now, all you have to do is to get hold of a cart to transport the wood.
So if you click on the depot, you can then click on buy vehicles. You can, if you click buy vehicle here and we want cargo, there's only one kind of vehicle we can buy. So you can tell it if you want to buy a multiple of them, or you can just keep clicking buy. It doesn't really matter. Let's say, for example, we want to create, I don't know, 6 of these. Click buy.
A sturdy vehicle.
Add 6.
The transport can get started.
Now, we need to assign it to the line that we just created. So what you can do is if you click above, it will highlight all of them, or you can just individually tick them. But I want every road vehicle we just bought. Click on the line tool. Click on our line, forest logs.
It won't be long before it's possible to dig deeper. Well then, good luck.
And if I click on forest logs, you can see all those vehicles are in there. So again, if you go back to line manager, you can see the lines that are here. And if you click on the depot, I need to unpause again. If you click on the depot, you'll see that the vehicles are no longer in the depot, but they are assigned to that line. So they'll all start spewing out now. They'll all go over to here and start loading up. The logs are starting to be produced, and because it has nowhere else to send them, it's going to send them here. Things get more complicated when you have, for example, a truck station and a train station, and when it produces goods, it decides where to put them based on which one is shipping the most, kind of thing. That's when it gets a little bit more complex, but we'll ignore that. Deliver the logs. Wait until the horse and cart has delivered the logs to the mine. Right, so what we'll do is we'll use the speed tool down the bottom right. We'll speed the game up. And if you click on one of those things, you can see it's carrying 4 out of 4. Now notice how long they're taking to load. That's because these things have quite a long load time. So what we could do, which we won't now, but what we could do is have a different line. We could have the same route, but have one picking up from the other terminal and split half of the vehicles between the terminals, just so that 2 can load at once. But generally speaking, what's going to happen is when they start to space out, we're not going to see that problem. This is actually a good way of spacing things out, because in a minute you'll see this one's arriving as this one, by the time it gets back, there'll be nothing there, and there'll be a nice gap between them all. Speed that up. you zoom in and just look at the detail on these vehicles, it's unbelievable.
Ha! Not everything that glitters is gold. Maybe your poker partner was sharper than you thought. Despite all the hardship, the mine only brings in a few chunks of silver ore. At best, you ought to get rid of it before it ruins you. Luckily, new greenhorns constantly get stranded in Virginia City, who you can peddle that confounded pit to for good money.
So that gold mine...
You got rid of the silver mine for a decent amount. Time to invest this money in a lucrative venture. And there's an excellent opportunity. All the ore from the mine must be transported to the silver mills down by the river. A railroad that takes over the transport would be a promising venture.
So the gold mine is in fact a silver mine, and all the way down here you'll notice there's a silver processing facility here. So it wants silver, and the game's already given us a cargo station to drop into. All we need to do is get a train and send all that ore down, though. It's quite a long journey through that valley, but it's doable. So what we want to do is we want to click on the train. This is road stuff. This is train. And then building, same thing. Now, generally speaking, again, they're split into passenger and cargo, but they're also, generally speaking, split into terminus stations like this, or through stations. It's not shown as a through stations at the moment. All we want is a cargo terminus, which is that one there. Now, on the right, there's an important screen where you specify how many tracks it has and how long you want it to be. You can change it later because they're all modular now. This was one thing that wasn't easy in Transport Fever 1, but in 2 it's much, much easier. But you can see this is too long. That's 160 meters. We want the 120 meter variation, and just one line will do. So we'll use the M and the N key and rotate it, and just pan the camera up a little bit, make sure that should do it. It's connected to the road. Boom.
The terrain is treacherous. It requires a few very twisted curves.
Now what you've got here, this is a small cargo. Think of it this way. You've got a track. Next to the track is either a passenger or a cargo platform, and that has to be linked to the road somehow if the goods are meant to get onto the road, which they are in this case. Actually, it doesn't matter so much with this one because the goods will go via the road internal network onto that platform there. But later on, when things get more complicated, you will need to make sure you've got road connections via these things. That's a cargo platform. If you clicked on it, you can see what a passenger platform would look like. A passenger platform looks a little bit different. It looks like that, as you can see. I'll get rid of that so you can see it properly. It has benches instead of basically an open area for cargo. And if you want to delete that, by the way, you click configure, and at the bottom is a... Oh, it's disabled it. Look at that. Okay, ignore that. There's a little demolish icon. You can just remove it. Connect the open end track at Devil's Pass. Let's click on that. So, right. This is the route, and it wants us to join everything up. So we'll click on train, track, and we can either... Actually, the easiest way of doing this is to just hover your mouse over here and then drag. And that will create the flattest possible route. You can then specify if you want it to be a tunnel or a valley. Well, a valley looks pretty stupid, so it's going to be a tunnel for sure. And then it's going to tell you it's going to cost 140 grand. If you don't like it, you just click on cancel. If you want to move it, you can just pick this thing up and carry on playing with it. So if you click tick, it'll make more sense when we do this one, actually. So with this one, if I was to drag from here to here, you can kind of see that the track speed is 49. And it also kind of cuts the bend off a little bit, which I'm not massively happy about. So maybe if we kind of steer a little bit wider, like say that, it's just not going to let me, is it? What I would normally do is build some of it and then build the rest of it, and that way I can better decide where to put it. But the game's not going to let me do it in this tutorial mode, so that's fine. So we've done that one, and then it wants us to create this bridge, so we just drag that across to there, and we can specify either made out of land, which looks weird, or made out of a bridge. 788,000.
Build a railroad route that rapidly transports all the ore to the valley.
Again, this is a tutorial, so it is locking down a few things. Line manager, new line. We want to say train, and we want to go silver ore. Oops, can't type. Silver ore like that. We could color it a silver-ish color. Actually, it's interesting. There's no white or grey in this. Okay, we'll just color it like that. So we want the silver ore, and we want to click to add from here, Virginia City, down to
A respectable railroad calls for a proper railroad station.
Right, so now we need a depot, exactly like we did with the truck stuff. So buildings, train depot, spin it around.
A truly well done structure. Now it just needs to be connected.
Drag some track in.
It's high time to buy a beautiful locomotive together with a few freight cars.
Now the thing is about this, and you'll see this later when we get further in the gameplay, this depot can only be accessed when the train is coming in that direction. In order to go into the depot to be reconfigured, it has to be going that way. Like, it can't be coming northbound and then turn left. We'd have to set it further back and create a double line into it. But in this example, I just wanted to explain to you that later on it becomes important how you put these things down, because if you don't put them down with enough forethought, it can get very annoying later. Anyway, click on depot, build a locomotive with 3 freight cars for silver ore. So we click on that, click buy, diesel, electric, steam. We only have steam, so we want one of these. So what you do is you click add and it configures it here, and then you buy it. So you kind of set it up how you want and then click buy. Wagons, we want cargo. Gondola, make sure it carries what we want. So gondola of silver ore. 1, 2. Oh man, I just messed up. Hang on, can you sell that please? Vehicle. Hang on. Clicked on the wrong button. We need to sell. Yes. Thank you. Ignore what I just said. Let's start again. Right. Click add cargo. Click add 1, 2, 3. And then when we've got exactly how we want, and bear in mind you can rearrange this however you want it. It tells you the capacity. It will carry 21 units of silver. 40 kilometers per hour is the top speed of the train, but that will vary depending on the load and how much incline it has. The length of the train is very important because the length of the platform has to be big enough. But we created, what was it, 120 meter platforms? Massive. Hover over this bit and it will tell you how it's performing. So if you have 3 cars on the back, it will perform in a mediocre way, it says, because only on the flat will it go 40 k's, the top limit, top speed. And it will only achieve that in 52 seconds, or about 371 meters. So on a flat surface, it's going to take nearly 400 meters to get up to top speed. As soon as it hits an incline, it's going to be doing a maximum 34, and as soon as it hits a steep incline, it's going to drop down to 18. So those statistics will help you when you're deciding how many cars to put on the back. Because, you know, as you start to add more, it might never even get up to top speed, because it's going to take it so long that you may as well have fewer cars and just have another train. That's a decision that you have to make. Anyway, we'll buy 1.
What a handsome iron horse.
And then we'll assign
Time
it
to send it on its maiden journey.
to the light. So we'll speed it up. You see how it's like a red color? If you click on it, you can actually change the color of, configure the vehicle. You can change the color of it. Where should we do it now? There you go. So we can make it like a grayish color like that. I think maybe you have to go on the depot to repaint it, I'm not sure. Anyway, that's going to take a bit of time to get down there, so it's at full speed. If you click on the train itself, by the way, you can see what speed it's currently doing.
The deed is done. The first train is rolling down the line. People are dropping everything to cheer your marvel of engineering. Don't pass up the chance to climb aboard and give them a friendly wave.
Click accept. This is like a bonus task.
Let's have a big round of applause.
So here is the cockpit camera. You click on
Hooray!
that.
There's no end to the rejoicing.
It's
all thanks to you.
It's not really a cockpit camera, is it? It's basically like a first-person, you know, over-the-front nose kind of camera. But it is still fun. Being able to ride your own train line is still fun. I don't like that term cockpit camera. Anyway, this is what it looks like heading down to Carson City Cargo Station in this train.
Thanks to your railroad, silver smelting is moving fast and furious. Meanwhile, all sorts of fine ladies and high-class gents get off in Carson City. Make sure they don't ruin their good shoes on the muddy streets. Find out about the needs of your future passengers.
Right, so activate the land use layer. That's the one I've already showed you before.
Your services are needed to the same degree everywhere in town.
So what this is saying is build a bus stop in each of the highlighted areas in Carson City. So what it's trying to do is provide a bus link between industry and commerce, just to kind of move people around. That's literally what it's doing. An industry, and residential. So it's moving people around so they can go shopping, they can go to work. You know, you get the idea. So what you do is you click on here, click on the bus stop, and put a bus stop down like that. One there. Make sure that you look at the arrow when you put it down, so you can see which direction it's on. So obviously, if you put it on the other side of the road, like that, it's going to be facing the wrong way. If I put that here now, it's not a massive issue, but what I would personally do is make sure they're all going the same way when I'm creating my route.
Coaches don't miss any stops.
Now that one's going to have to come back this way anyway. Oh, it's stopping me from adding more. Let's come back. So link the new stops in Carson City to a line. So we want to go line, new line. We're going to call it road, and we'll call it Carson buses. Like that. We'll change the color to, I don't know, orange. We'll click on that stop, and then that stop.
Build a depot where the horses can be hitched up and the coaches can wait.
Now, one thing to note about this is that number one, it starts off here, then it goes to here, then it goes to here. But there's no return path at the moment. So people who want to get from industry back to here, they can do, but you know, they can't go any other way. Like, they literally have to go. Well, let me put it this way: if you get on at industry, you can't get off at commerce. You actually need to stop there as well. You need to make a proper circuit out of this. Also notice that if this was in a real game, I'd probably join that road up there and send it back a slightly different way just to get some variety. But this is tutorial. So we will just create a depot via this thing here. Tram depot, no, road depot. Does it want it in a particular place? Nope. Okay, we'll just put it on the way up here. Right. Let's just make sure it's lined up.
Purchase a few coaches with horses so that you can get started.
So, passenger, horse-drawn carriage, let's have, I don't know, 6 of them. Click all, and then Carson buses, line we want.
Great. The first passengers are already waiting.
Crazy AI. Who knows why it just did that? So that will move people around the network as well.
The
so
Territorial Enterprise
they're less likely.
reports, a beast is up to no good in the area.
Hang on.
According to eyewitnesses, it leaped from tree to tree, was at least 10 feet tall, had a shaggy black pelt, and enormous feet. Now, ask the reporter what it's all about.
So again, this is another bonus task. You don't have to
The
do these.
reporter, a certain Mr. Clemens, has revealed his source to you. An old good-for-nothing by the name of Sam Hawkins. He's supposed to be in the saloon in Virginia City. Could be it means buying him a couple of shots of hard liquor before he comes up with the truth.
So you kind of look around the map and find these question marks.
The good man was happy to provide information. The monster got a few feet taller with each whiskey you bought him. Word has it that it gobbles up whole cows and picks the remains out of its teeth with a wagon tongue. Our informer thinks it's hanging around near the Ponderosa Ranch, if he's not mistaken.
Okay, so there's another question mark to click.
Old Cartwright and his son didn't take too kindly to your visit to the Ponderosa Ranch. Apparently you're not the first to be hot on the monster's heels. The rancher claims that dozens laid siege to their land, but just when he was about to run them off, they hurried away towards Lake Tahoe with a paper hot off the presses in their hands. The Territorial Enterprise reports. The wild man is dead. His body was committed to the waters of Lake Tahoe, where it will sink to a depth of over 600 feet, be encased motionless in a block of ice, and shrink to the size of a small child due to the high pressure. Well, guess not much can be done about that.
Huh?
She's just going for a leisurely drive. It's nothing to do with us. Yeah, those little side quests are just things that it throws in to, well, I guess to entertain you while you're waiting for things to happen, and also add a bit of a fun story plot to the whole thing. Anyway, the current goal is transporting 5 passengers. We'll just speed it up until it decides to do that. If you click on this now, you can see there are 5-6 people waiting, so you need to monitor things and decide how many vehicles to put on the line, but you can see it's already starting to become popular.
Where not too long ago there was nothing more than a dreary two-bit town, a magnificent little city now flourishes, thanks to your transportation services. The locals even call it the miracle of Carson City. More and more people want to try their luck there. Obstacles shouldn't be put in their way. Get into the passenger business. Your tickets will be the hottest item in town. Make sure that the rest of the world is finally connected to Carson City, a veritable boom town.
Right, so now it's talking about Reno over here and Carson City here. So it wants us to create a train link between these two. So build a passenger station at Carson. We'll click on the train building, and we want a passenger terminus. The right length, 120 meters will do. We'll just stay with a single track. If this was, you know, if this was a map, I may consider putting 2 in, but we'll just put 1 for now. Must be connected to a road, okay. So we're going to make sure that those, you see those little blue lines that appear when you get close? We're going to make sure that they appear. And also make sure you don't, like, do this, because if you do, it says 1 building will be removed, and it's going to cost money to demolish that thing. So the cost will go up quite substantially. So we want to make sure we're just about there. So we've got connections in, but we're not destroying anything. Build a passenger connects up with the passenger station at Reno. So it wants us to come through here and connect it into this, but it's provided the line to here already. And it looks like it's quite a flat valley, but we could put... Oh, it's disabled contours. So go to train, click on the track section this time, and then we'll put the track. So you hover the mouse over like that, and then drag. Click on the tick mark, and then drag a bit more.
Buy a train arrangement that brings people from all over the world to Carson City.
Right, build a new depot near the new line, connect it, buy a locomotive and 3 passenger cars there. Right, so we want a flat space, so this looks reasonably flat, so we'll probably build a depot, say, here somewhere, and then build some track, going in like that, and like that. And that way, it can come in either way. It can nip into the depot. So if the train's coming back this way and we go to depot, it can just jump in like that. Right, buy vehicles. We want a steam. Add on passenger. Is it 3 cars? 1, 2, 3. Buy.
Time to inaugurate the line from Reno to Carson City, the town built on silver.
We didn't create a line yet. So line manager, new line, will go between here and here. And we'll call it train Carson Reno passengers. Again, just name it so that you can understand it later. Doesn't matter what it's called, it's just for you. Then we go back to there and we say that train goes on that line.
We're off and running. Everyone is dead set on riding your beautiful railroad.
Now, there's no point buying more than one train right now because the way this line is set
There's
up...
firewood up in Glenbrook that'll get the steam engines in the Silverworks puffing real nice. But watch out that you don't cross paths with the Cartwrights from the Ponderosa Ranch. They're not the kind of folks to tangle with.
Another bonus task, accept.
You barely got away from the Cartwright boys. Now get a respectable load of logs down to the valley as fast as possible before the ranchers come back again.
So deliver logs from the ranch to the timber supplies. This is like a bonus quest that you can do. So there's a ranch here and a timber supply here. So this furnace wants wood. That is, if you click on it, as long as it's highlighted, it means that this truck stop here will accept logs and deliver them to here. So all we actually need up here is a truck station. So we can pick things up. So we go to buildings and then truck station, this one, and then just decide where we want it. Again, when you put it down, you're just looking for the highlights to make sure it's within the catchment. And always leave a bit of space around it in case you want to like modularly expand the truck station later. So we can put it like here, like that. We need a depot. We have a depot here. So what we can do is create a line that goes from there to here, and that is a road network, and that is Carson wood. We'll make it that color. So go to the depot, buy some vehicles, cargo vehicles. We'll have, say, I don't know, we'll probably like 12 of them or something, quite a few. Click on all, assign Carson wood, and as you scroll through it highlights the route so you can just double check it. Carson wood. It's definitely the right one, isn't it? Or did I just call it Carson logs? Carson City Annex is Carson Wood. Yeah, it's that one. Carson City Annex. For some reason, because I put Carson Wood and Forest Logs, I was like, but no, the Forest Logs is back up at Virginia City, so that's fine. So yeah, we'll just speed that up now, and those vehicles should head up. Here they come, a little flurry of them. Now, if we click on one, it's doing 18 kilometers. Which is probably its maximum speed along this flat bit. Watch what happens when it hits this elevation, because this is quite a climb up to this annex. And you'll see the speed just like drop quite a bit. Need to keep an eye on this as well, bringing people to Carson, bringing people to Reno. So it's down to 15, 14, 13. The elevation is killing it now. Look, 11. That's, you know, that's always a consideration. Luckily, when they're going uphill, they're empty. So I think that helps as well. But now look at that, 7, 6. I mean, you know, you're at walking speed now. It's crazy. Still, if we click on this, there's actually plenty of wood there for them. 34, in fact. They should start delivering that. Close that for now. Let's check on this train and see if it's actually moving people. So it's got 8 passengers from Reno. Back here, is there anybody waiting here? Yeah, 12. What was the capacity of that train? 42, that's fine. So it wants us to move 20 people. We should be able to pick up most of these. In fact, all of them. Let's check on the other one, which is this run here, Carson City Cargo Station. Bring people to Carson City. Yeah, oh, that's the reciprocal version. Yeah, so it's 20 this way and 20 that way. Yeah, that's fine. So it's just a matter of waiting that out now. As I was saying earlier, there's no point adding another train onto this line because this line, it's a single line. It has no passing loops and it has no signals. That's something that we're going to come to. I think we start to do that in the next mission. But for this mission, there's nothing we can do. It's a single. If you put another train on here, it will sit in the depot because it cannot. That is, in train terms, that is a single block, and only one train can be in a block. Right, I'll just wait this out and we'll wait till it pings. Right, so the silver ore is happy. We've done that. We've just got to complete the passenger run because the silver's working. And if you actually click down here, it gives you an overview of how much money is being made. So what tends to happen is when you first establish a line, you lose money. Don't think, oh no, the line's not profitable. It always takes investment to get the line going, because as the passengers or the industry responds to your moving stuff around, then the numbers start to increase and then the profit starts to come. Well, you can see the silver ore line is starting to turn over a small profit. That will probably increase quite a bit. The logs on the road is turning a nice little profit. The Carson wood, which we just started to establish here, is in profit now. Carson Reno, again, that's going to be one that will take longer. It is such a massive run, and as your trains are running along the track, they incur costs. There's constant costs that you'll see pinging up. Every station that you put down, every bit of track that you have, every vehicle on the road, you see that? All of it just constantly taking money. And you offset it by delivering goods and getting some profit, but you can keep your eye on it with this line statistics tool. There's also a vehicle statistics tool, so you can identify if there's any particular train that's not making you money, or particular, you know, you can be on a network, but there's just some of them are just not a profitable line, like this one here. You might sort of think, what happened to that one?
The silver business is doing splendid. A cluster of pathetic shacks has become the swankiest town in the whole West, where you find the most exquisite shops, the best saloons, and the loveliest ladies of ill repute far and wide. Many an opportunity suggests itself to spend those silver dollars you so richly deserved. Your railroad business is the real gold mine in the state of Nevada.
That is the first mission done, okay? So that's more than enough for this video. I hope you enjoyed the first look. Don't forget, if you do want to buy this game, 25% off on Steam if you have the first one. If not, look in the video description for the link and code to get you 17% off at Games Planet. Still save you some money, hopefully. Please give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. In the next one, we're going to do the second mission and we'll learn some more stuff. Take care, guys. Happy transporting.